Greetings, all you movie junkies and entertainment lovers, and welcome to the first of what will hopefully be a new series of retrospective videos that I'm doing, talking about classic TV shows and stuff. So the first one that I want to take a look at is none other than the original Incredible Hulk series, starring Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby. So this series came out in 1977. It ran for 5 seasons, over 82 episodes or something, 82 episodes. And it really was actually quite groundbreaking in terms of, like superhero / comic book adaptations on both television and in movies. Because up to this point when this came out, even the Christopher Reeve Superman hadn't even come out yet. So there really hadn't been that much stuff. Really the only sort of big successful one was, of course, Batman, the original 60s Batman, and also around this time, about I think it was 2 years earlier, you had the original Wonder Woman series began airing. So there have been a couple other things, but a lot of like superhero comic book based stuff, other than like some of those two that I just mentioned, hadn't really lasted past maybe like a season or so. So Incredible Hulk really was a big deal and really changed things. And Ken Johnson, who was the creator of the series, who also was a writer on The $6 Million Man and was the creator of the Bionic Woman. When he was brought on to be the creator of the series, he initially actually had no interest in it at all. Apparently he wasn't even like a comic book fan, really. He didn't really read the comics or anything. But for whatever reason, he decided to do it anyway, and sure enough, it ended up kind of proving that you don't actually have to be a fan of the source material in order to do something interesting with it. Because honestly, this series is pretty damn awesome, honestly, I have to say. And I think one of the reasons why this show was such a success, and why I still fondly remember to this day, and why to me it's still a great show and it was very significant, is the fact that it took itself really seriously. And now, of course, when you watch the show today, it does have its, its, I guess, 70-isms, if you will, like it's, the hairstyles and stuff. But for me, when watching the show, that's kind of just part of the charm of, the series and why I kind of enjoy it and like it. And, it really, in terms of a lot of the storylines and stuff, they didn't really do a lot of, like, traditional comic book style stories. Because they knew that they were on a budget, and they knew that they could only do so much with what they were given. So they were really clever about what they did, and instead of doing, like what I said, traditional comic book storylines, a lot of the stories actually dealt with a lot of real life kind of stuff. And there's a lot of episodes that deal with, like, drug use and abuse, and there's even some episodes that deal with, like, I think 1 or 2 episodes that deal with post-traumatic stress and stuff like that. And and there's like stuff with drugs and everything. Like it's really for the most part, when you watch the series, the Hulk itself, or himself, is the most fantastical element, and that really worked in their favor, and it really made it seem more fantastic, I guess, because when you watch a traditional episode of the series, each episode, there's normally only about 2 Hulk outs, and there'll only be one kind of towards the beginning, and then one at the very end. And that was because they basically just didn't have enough money to, they just had to play with their limitations. They only had so much money, and of course the Incredible Hulk stuff would obviously cost a lot of money in terms of props and everything, and so they kind of had to limit their resources, and I think that was a really smart idea, to just limit it to 2 Hulk outs per episode, and that really worked in their favor. And because really, there's not really, when you think about it, there's really probably like 10, maybe 15 minutes of actual Hulk action in an episode. But one of the reasons why I think it works, even though that is the case, is because I think of Bill Bixby, who I think most people would agree still to this day, even if you don't really fondly remember the show as much, is that he was probably the best Bruce Banner, or of course in this case David Banner, that we ever got. And I mean, he was just absolutely incredible and really carried the show. But to me, the kind of the unsung hero of the series as well, I would also be Lou Ferrigno. I mean, this series, as great as Bill Bixby was a part of the series' success and the series working, Lou Ferrigno as well, I don't think it could have worked without him. And he just, was just dedicated to, playing that character. And still to this day, nobody else has actually played the Hulk in live action. Everybody else has only, played, the role of Banner. So he, played a very, very unique role in that sense, and in terms of that, he wasn't playing Banner, he was playing the Hulk, he was playing the monster, and it's crazy because, when Lou Ferrigno, has talked about his time on the show in the past, a number of people have talked about it. I mean, he would have to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. He would work out, go in the gym, work out a bunch of hours, then he would have to go into work, and he would have to, get all of the makeup and everything put on him, and apparently the paint, the green paint and stuff, what they would use, of course, unfortunately, it would still look wet when they would put it on, so they had to put on like this extra layer of all this powder stuff, touch them all up and everything. He'd have to, of course, get the white eyepieces in. He had to, of course, get the eyebrows done, the wig and everything. So that would take another couple of hours. And then he would, shoot his whatever scenes he had to shoot that day, which would take, another few hours or so. And then he would have to, of course, get all the makeup and everything to get taken off, which would take another couple of hours, and before you know, his entire day would be taken up by just doing all of that, and then he would have to just, get maybe just a couple hours of sleep and have to start the whole cycle all over again. I mean, that's dedicated. I mean, that is really incredible, and considering that, there's not that many people that would really go through all of that just for a TV show. Like, when Lou Ferrigno has talked about the Hulk in the past, you know when he talks about it that he really, truly, truly cares about the character and, loves, and just really cares for the character. And up to this point, the character had really only been around for like 10 years or so. So it was really not all that long. And, yeah, it's just kind of, incredible that he put in all that effort. And, but the series, actually, when you watch the series, in many ways, it was actually a remake of The Fugitive. And I've actually talked about this with some people before, but in many ways, when you watch the show, it very much was The Fugitive. And that, of course, you also had the character of Jack McGee as well, played by, of course, Jack Colvin, who, of course, was in tons and tons of movies and shows and stuff back then. And he, of course, plays, Jack McGee, the reporter who's, trying, of course, constantly, chasing after the Hulk, trying to figure out his identity and all this kind of stuff. And it was a great character, really, really good kind of character for the series and everything. And, it very much felt like The Fugitive in that way, except it was like The Fugitive meets Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, essentially. And I think that worked incredibly well, and I think that's the reason why the show worked, was because Ken Johnson did not, decide, let's take, the comics and turn that into a show. No, he said, let's take the idea of the Incredible Hulk and just do our own thing with it. And I think because of that, it worked. And the person that praised the show the most was Stan Lee. Of course, who created the original comics. He, of all people, was the one that praised the show the most. And of course, they redid the origins quite a bit. In the original comics, of course, there was a whole gamma sort of explosion that happened and everything. Of course, on a TV show budget, they didn't really have the luxury to do something like that. So, of course, they had to kind of rechange the origin a bit. But I think the retooling of the origins, I thought was pretty awesome. And I gotta be honest, I think the origin in the TV show, in my opinion, was actually better than the origin in the comics. That's just my opinion. And they actually did keep that origin from when they did the Ed Norton Hulk movie in 2008, which I thought was really cool. And that movie actually did take a lot of inspiration from the series. But it really, really was a great series. When you watch it now, some of the makeup effects, the transition effects, of, the Hulk. In some of the early episodes, a little rough. As you watch the series, you can see the makeup on Lou Ferrigno kind of change a little bit. It seems like by later in the series they kind of got it done right and everything. And yeah, it was just a really great show. And unfortunately, it got abruptly cancelled. There was something about how the president of, I think it was like CBS or whatever at the time, wanted them to limit themselves to, I think he wanted to limit the budget, but that basically meant that they would have to limit themselves to only a few, like maybe one Hulk out per episode. And Ken Johnson, the creator, just didn't want to do that, and unfortunately after that the show was kind of very abruptly cancelled, kind of leaving it very open-ended. One of the other things as well, actually, would be that Bill Bixby, actually, who also was not really interested, I should say, was also not really interested in doing a show called The Incredible Hulk. And he actually only agreed to do the series if Ken Johnson agreed to stay with the series throughout the entire run. And he was also, that was one of the reasons why the show was the way it was, because Bill Bixby only wanted to do it unless it stayed, they kept the tone of the pilot episode, and they kept it serious, and they kept it very grounded. And a little later on, they did do some sort of slightly more kind of outlandish kind of stories and stuff. For instance, there's a great two-parter, which is probably my favorite episode of the whole series, called Prometheus, Part 1 and 2, where I think they actually raised the budget. I think they cut down like two episodes of the series just so they could put more money into that two-parter event. And where basically like a meteor lands, and it starts to, because of the radiation of it, it starts messing with Banner's transition from Hulk to normal, and he ends up getting stuck in between. And it was a great two-part event. Another one that a lot of people love is the two-parter, the first, where there's actually another Hulk, which is played by, oh god, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think he was the actor who played Swamp Thing in the original Swamp Thing movie, and that was another great two-parter. And another two-parter actually was, there was basically all the two-parters, so basically the best episodes, was another one called Mystery Man, where Jack McGee comes very close to figuring out if Banner is really the Hulk or not, and he does end up finding out something about him, but I won't reveal that for those of you who've maybe never seen this series and are interested in going back and watching it. But there were just tons of really great episodes, and of course, like any show, there were some episodes that were just a little weaker, not quite as strong as the others. It did get, as you watch the series, it does get a little bit repetitive towards the end or whatever. But for me, that was just kind of part of the charm. It's just like watch it, you know what you're gonna get. And it worked kind of in that retrospect, but it was really great series, and yeah, just great stuff. So when it got cancelled, of course, the series, of course, was quite actually very popular when it came out and everything. So about 6 years later, they actually did a series of TV movies, which they were free, which was The Incredible Hulk Returns, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, and The Death of the Incredible Hulk. And The Incredible Hulk Returns, actually, in each one of them, the Hulk actually essentially crosses over with another Marvel character. So The Incredible Hulk Returns had 4, and Trial of the Incredible Hulk had Daredevil, and Death of the Incredible Hulk had Black Widow. Now, they never actually say in the movie that the character is Black Widow, but when you watch the movie, it's very clear the character is supposed to be at least very influenced by Black Widow. So it's basically Black Widow, whatever. So, and those movies, honestly, they did not have the involvement of Ken Johnson, so when you watch those, they were a little bit more sillier, a little bit more cheesier. They weren't quite as well written. I think they had a little bit more of a tighter budget than the series, honestly, and they were so they, to be honest, they weren't quite as good as some of the best episodes of the show, but I still really liked them a lot, and I thought they were very good, and I thought, still both Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, continue to bring their A game to that, and it was still, I think they were still really enjoyable. Now, what's interesting is that you would think from the name of the third one, The Death of the Incredible Hulk, that was supposed to be the last one. But it kind of was and kind of wasn't. It was actually, they wanted to do something at the time where they kind of leave it open-ended, where if they wanted to do another one, they knew what they could do, but if they didn't want to, it would work as a proper ending. Of course, what ended up happening was, of course, shortly after the third one, of course, Bill Bixby sadly passed away, so they were, kind of, fate kind of chose for them that the Death of the Incredible Hulk ended up being the last one. In terms of what they were going to do, there were kind of a couple of ideas. I mean, there's two sort of versions. There was two titles. Some sources say that it was going to be called Revenge of the Incredible Hulk. Some sources say it was going to be called Rebirth of the Incredible Hulk. And there's multiple different versions of what it was going to be. There's lots of things that suggest that Iron Man was going to be in it, and that it was basically going to have, that it was going to have, there was one version where it was going to have, it wasn't even going to have Bill Bixby in it. That was going to have or it was going to have Bill Bixby's voice, but it was like his Banner's brain in the body of the Hulk or something like that. So yeah, but that of course fortunately never happened. Lou Ferrigno though actually did play the Hulk a couple more times. He did voice the Hulk in the 90s animated series, as well as of course making cameos in both of the two live-action Hulk movies that came out after that. And he also of course was apparently he provided the voice of the Hulk in both the Ed Norton film and the first two Avengers movies as well. And then he kind of stopped doing it after that. I think it sounds like because of creative differences, it looks like he wasn't a big fan of where they kind of were taking the Hulk and stuff. And after seeing some of the more recent movies and stuff, I kind of see why maybe Lou Ferrigno might have had a problem with where they were taking the Hulk. But anyway, that's a whole different conversation for another time. But I should mention that first of all, of course, the series has been released a couple times over the years. So this is just the regular DVD set here. This is honestly the best version to get, and also the cheapest version to get. There was a Blu-ray put out here in the UK by, I think it was a company called Fabulous Entertainment, but that transfer is garbage. Do not buy it. There's some kind of a problem with the contrast where it's just completely messed up. It's way, way, way too dark. And I don't know why they played with it and made it super dark for some reason. But the DVD set, honestly, the transfer is really, really great. It could be better, but it's pretty awesome. So this is really the really nice DVD set that's been out for years now. And this is the one that honestly I would recommend that you get. That has all has a bunch of special features and everything about whereas some commentaries of Ken Johnson and stuff like that, and also. The TV movies have also been released on DVD as well. Now, unfortunately, the TV movies, I believe, were shot on video, which basically means that quality-wise, they're really not that good, but there's unfortunately not much we can do about that. So this is probably the best that they're ever going to look, but there you go, so those have been released on DVD as well. But, yeah. So a lot of people talk about all the time about how, X-Men and Batman and stuff were responsible for kicking off this superhero golden age that we're living in now. But to me, the Incredible Hulk was the one that really, really started, really kind of put things in gauge. And yeah, I think it's a great series. If you've never seen it, I highly, highly recommend checking out. It's a great series. It surprisingly holds up very, very well. Lou Ferrigno was great, Bill Bixby was great, Jack Coleman was great, and yeah, it was just a really, really great series. And yeah, I highly recommend checking it out if you never have. And it really is a really great show. And I think that it proves that following the source material doesn't always mean you get good results. So sometimes you have to kind of figure out your own way, and do your own thing. And sometimes that can work. So yeah, so. Going to be doing some more retrospectives in the future, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So yeah, until next time, be sure to consume as much entertainment as humanly possible, and I will see you in the next video.